him over the month or so that he's been here, a couple months, and just kind of how that process works within the organization when you are evaluating talent, be it from the portal or the high school level. Like, who's got the kind of like the final say on that kind of stuff?
I mean, you know, I'm the head coach, right? So I think everything falls under me, right? I would say final. I mean, I say final say. I mean, I think we just want to be right. So I think there's all those things, but Pat, Pat reports to me. So it's not one of those. There's some schools that have done something different, but with that being said, I brought Pat in because I think he's an absolute difference maker, and I think there's different areas of this now. There's player evaluation and recruitment, right? So player acquisition, which has many facets. There's player retention, and there's player finance. That's really the NFL, right? NFL's acquisition, retention, finance. And so for years it was just acquisition here. It was just recruiting, right? So you had the recruiting piece. Now you have the evaluation of the portal, the financial components. And so I think part of it is when there's no salary cap, then it doesn't matter, right? Then a player's market value is his value. When you have a salary cap, if there is going to be a cap here, now you have to start to get into valuation and where we see people, and I think Pat's excellent at that. When you go to the NFL, when I went to the NFL as a head coach, what I found was there was really like two different types of grading systems. There's like maybe three, but one special one's the Patriot system, which kind of puts guys based upon their role in the team. I was always fascinated by it. We hired Pat. We tried to implement some components of it. So it's less about how other people see them and more about how you'll use them. Pat's having to adapt to the fact that he's going from looking at guys in the draft now we're evaluating 15-year-old kids, right? Like, people ask me how we haven't offered this guy, haven't offered that guy, and I have to sometimes remind everyone that they're 15. Like, I'm trying to figure out what they're going to be like when they're 22. And so that part of it, I know he's relying a lot on Keith. I think Keith Williams has done a fantastic job, in terms of the recruitment part. But in terms of evaluation, in terms of placing financial value, the hard thing is it's not. I covered this with the team. It's not personal value, right? Like, I always tell the guys there's Matt and then there's Coach Rhule, right? Like, so let's say a fight breaks out of practice. Matt kind of likes it, for being honest. Coach Rhule has to like go in there and yell and scream, "Enough! What's wrong with you guys?" There's Matt, there's Coach Rhule, right? Job. Well, who each person is out there, like I love each person for who they are. They have a personal value. The valuation, we put the place on them is the role they're going to play and all those things. And so Pat's, I think, is excellent at that. He's been doing it for a long time. The evaluation process, the financial piece. Sean Patton continues to do an excellent job with the financial piece, the analytics piece. And, we're just still kind of working in murky waters because we don't know necessarily all the rules. We don't know the role of third-party NIL moving forward. We don't know. So we're, the portal's still open with no house settlement right now, so it's still a free-for-all. So we're still trying to figure out all those things. But Pat, he's a critical thinker. And so I think when I hired him, I just said, hey, you'll figure all this out.
I noticed there's 4 quarters, when we put out the schedule for the scrimmage on Saturday. What's maybe your vision of how you want to format that? And I know you talked a little bit about last week, but have you kind of clarified how you want that to look?
Yeah, so, I wanted to be able to take, basically most of the 2s and 3s, like take the older guys out, but have all the 2s. I mean, there's a lot of guys who are going to play on Saturday. They're going to play for a lot for us this year. And, play it, kind of, I like to get about 60 plays if I could, on Saturday. So I want to play. I mean, I think we have some young quarterbacks I really need to see. Well, I think they deserve a chance to play in the spotlight. Now we've had a couple late soft tissue things, at some receiver spots. So, we might be in the triple out there on Saturday, running the ball downhill. But no, I think it's going to be fun. I think we're gonna play. Like I said, maybe play, not 15 play quarters, but get about 15 plays each quarter. Give those guys a chance to go rest. Bring out the the next Husker game type deal. Let those guys compete. Then go back to the next quarter. So to me, it's kind of like competition quarter, that type of a deal.
What's the QB shootout?
If I'm being honest, I don't know that I know that. Like Brandon Meyer and all those guys have done a nice job. I saw they were painting a big. There's a big bullseye out there, so I'm assuming it's, kind of like the Pro Bowl. They have the moving targets and all that. I think there's a moving target, right? I heard that, right? So the biggest thing is we've talked a lot about. There's a roping competition, and so I asked who could rope, and thinking like everyone's hands would go up, and only a couple guys' hands went up. And for some reason, when they handed me the mock thing, they had Elijah Judy on there. So Elijah's like, I can do it. He actually texted me last night. He texted me like a YouTube video of learning how to rope. So he's trying to learn how to rope in 3 days. So from North Philly to the rodeo, I love it. That's who Elijah is. But yeah, I think it's gonna be like kind of like the NFL, Pro Bowl, all those different things. Brett, I know Brett Maher. I was, telling he's going to battle out there and kick. So there should be some fun stuff.
Will you guys have your one group scrimmage though, one final time like this week, or are they done?
Yeah, we went helmets today so that we can practice Thursday and Saturday. You can't, Saturday counts as a scrimmage because there's former players on the field while we're there, so it can't be a full scrimmage Thursday, but it will be a lot of live work. Today was a huge 2-minute day. Helmet day. We got a ton of reps today, and then Thursday we were going to go Thursday night. It looks like it's going to rain, so now we're going to go Thursday morning. That's one of the reasons why I moved to now, because we thought we were going to be going Thursday night. But we'll scrimmage Thursday morning some, within the rules.
How do you think not just Dylan, but those other quarterbacks have tracked throughout the spring?
Yeah, I think I don't think there's a guy in the locker room that wouldn't follow Jalen Gramstad into battle and believe that he can get it done for us. He's getting a lot of reps. He's done a really nice job. The other guys have worked hard. TJ, I think it's important for TJ to get some opportunities on Saturday. I like his competitive fire. I like his intelligence. I like his athleticism. He throws a really accurate ball, catchable. He knows where to go with it. So I think it's important that he gets those reps. I think Marcos and the other guys, they need to get out there and play. So I think they've all, we've got a lot of quarterbacks, so we've had to spread the reps around. We've given Dylan a ton because he's going into his second spring. He needs the reps, but I think we feel really good about that second spot.
You mentioned some soft tissue stuff with receivers. How do you feel you'll come out of this health-wise? And at the beginning, you kind of gave a list of guys who were injured. Have guys tracked it that you wanted with their recoveries?
The recoveries, I don't know. I think I'm not saying that to be dismissive. Like that's a lot. That's like, hey, he'll be back in June and July, and so I'll have to wait and see how those things go. We practice pretty hard, and those, the guys are coming out. I've talked to some of our players that have left and gone to other schools. Will sometimes reach back out to me. Sometimes when things are hard, they'll reach back out to me too. And I know some schools aren't practicing that much. They're not doing as much. We're still trying to develop. We're still trying to become a good football team, and I think we've come out of the spring really pretty healthy. There's been some things, but I think for the most part, we're as healthy as you can be coming out of the spring ball.
With the portal closing Friday, what is your week like, just managing that with your own locker room and obviously kind of tracking players that might go in that you might have some interest in?
You're saying in terms of our guys?
Yeah, have you had conversations already? I know there really haven't been a lot of public or any public injuries yet at this point, but what do you anticipate, I guess, within your own program in the coming days with the portal?
Yeah, I'm going to still coach the guys as if it's, 10 years ago, in terms of I'm going to meet with every player after spring and talk about what they need to do to become a great player, right? I think I put up a picture of Cam Jurgens the other day for the guys. I did like a photo display, and the first picture was him in like a spandex, Coach Frost camp, Go Big Red camp or something like this, and it didn't even fit. Then it's like him while he's here, then it's him at playing here, then it's him at pro day, and he just, the transition, right? And I was like, did 16-year-old Cam Jurgens know that someday he would sign an extension, for $69 million? Or I don't know, but he stayed in the process. So I think my job when I meet with the guys after spring ball is always to tell them, this is what I think you need to do. I'm accessible 24/7. I'm happy to talk to guys. I don't talk to guys about money. I don't think that's good business. I think my conversations with guys should be about football. That's Pat and Sean are here to talk about the financial piece. When there's a financial component, there's a reason why I have an agent. If there's something in my contract, I don't want to, start having those conversations. I'm not adept at that. So yeah, guys can come talk to us anytime. Guys have come into me, and some guys have said, "Hey, where do you think I fit? Where am I at in the 105?" We've been honest with everyone. I told them I'm available here for them at any point this week. I kind of have two rules. I don't want to talk about any other players. There's when you start paying players. I didn't get into college football to be in this business of paying different people, right? And it is what it is, and I'm happy they're getting stuff, but it is hard that he's getting one amount and you're getting another, and so that can be very hard for guys. And so I'm not here to talk badly about another player on the team, and I'm not here to spend a lot of time talking about money. I'm here to talk about football. Pat and those guys, they'll talk about the money, but we won't talk about other guys. So it's but it's kind of just on a person by person basis. It's just if a guy wants to talk to me, if a guy's thinking about going in the portal, early on, the first time through the portal, I probably was more like, had a heart. I didn't know if I understood how to exactly do it. Now I'm sort of like, hey, come talk to me if you have any questions. Let me know. Let me know if I'll tell you where I see you guys at. I've had players come in and say to me, Coach, I got 3 head coaches calling my mom, telling her I should go here. What should I do? And I'm like, I'm not saying they are. I'm just saying that kids feeling all kinds of pressure, and me just doing my best to tell them, I know how it feels, and here's where I see you. So, it's kind of fluid. I'm giving kind of a long-winded answer. I apologize, but there's no set way to do this in my mind in terms of each player. So it's just kind of on a case-by-case basis. But we do meet with every player after spring to talk about what they need to do. Even if you're in the 105, even if you're a starter, you're trying to accelerate and develop, right? And so, Deshaun Singleton's trying to move up in next year's draft. So I sat down with him and showed him all the things from last year I think he can improve upon. So I think that's my job from him to a guy that's the 105th guy.
Speaking of the NFL draft, there's an opportunity for maybe 5 guys, 6 guys to be taken this weekend. That would be a representative big jump for this program in recent years. How do you feel like you guys have put players in position to move on to the league? And I wanted to ask specifically about Fidone. He took a risk, obviously, taking a chance going to the NFL draft now when he could have come back, and it looks like he's pretty much a consensus NFL pick.
Well, I think it's very important to say that most of those guys were brought here by Scott Frost and his staff. Okay, so I think that's very, very important to say, and his strength staff and all those people that were here. So, Ty Robinson, Nash Hutmacher, Isaac Gifford, those guys were brought here. Fidone, those guys were brought here under that staff. So I know the impact like Coach Becton had on Thomas. Just the relationship that he had. So I think that's important to say. We took an approach when we got here. Everybody that was here, there was no you're old guys and new guys, you're our guys, right? We try to take that approach. I think we've tried to develop. I think Corey, the people downstairs, I think do a really nice job. I think the thing that we're trying to get done is we really, really want our players, when they go to the NFL, to be pros. As I tell them, when you're in year 1, I want you to be in year 3 mentally, if that makes sense. When other guys are trying to figure out how to take notes and how to learn all this information, we've put them in an environment where year 1 is actually year 3, and they're further ahead than and so we've had guys like Ty Robinson spoke to the team. He talked about, he went to the Senior Bowl, and day 1 he was 3rd team, and day 2 he was 1st team, because he knows how to practice, and he knows how to take care of his body, and he knows how to, as he's gone to the interviews, taking notes and those things. So I'm going to be really, really excited. I love that group of guys. I love the first group that was here. They took a chance on me and our staff, and they stayed. And some of those guys are Fidone. For my wife and 2 daughters love Thomas Fidone. There's always been a connection there between them. And our dog Nala. So Thomas has a dog, Rambo. We have a dog, Nala, and our dog tore her ACL. And Thomas was getting ready to go down to Florida, and I said, I tore ACL. I got to get to the doctor, and I was leaving town. And he literally was driving to our house. He's like, I'll take the dog to Omaha for you. That seems like a little thing, but usually when they're kind of done playing for you, they're kind of done playing for you for a couple of years, and they come back around. There's no one more loyal than Fidone. So I'm excited for him. He's going to get drafted, I think. I've gotten more calls on him. He's an unbelievably freaky athlete. He took probably the toughest shot to the knee. When I saw it, I almost I saw the practice rep. I almost threw up when I saw it. And no disrespect to the kid who did it. I've just never seen anything like it. sometimes I hear some vitriol on Twitter for that kid, and it's like, why? Because he was a 5-star and we wanted a little more. I mean, that's tough. I think he's an amazing, amazing young man. And I encouraged him to go to the NFL. I was one of the guys sitting there saying, like, I remember I called Matt Nagy at the Senior Bowl, and I was like, if you can get him in the Senior Bowl, I think we're gonna tell him to go pro. And he was like, why? Because I just didn't want to see him have another knee. You know what I mean? Like, he had 2 of the toughest injuries, and he's fought back, and he's carrying that on his shoulders, and he's so loyal, and he plays hard, and his best football's ahead of him. So I'm excited for him. You guys know how I feel about Ty, Nash. I think Giff really helped himself at Pro Day. And the guys have come in, like MJ Sherman, like whoever gets MJ, they're going to love him. They're going to appreciate him. Tommy's, still battling back from the foot, but Tommy will be somewhere. And Jamal Banks, Isaiah Nayor, like I would absolutely take chances. Johnny Bullock. So I'm probably forgetting a guy or two, and I don't mean to, but Ramir Johnson to me would give people a run for their money, man. So I think it's just a great group. It's hard to find a lineman. Ben Scott had a great pro day. Bryce Benhart's had a storied career. He knows how to practice. So I hope the guys get drafted. I always send them a note. Hey, this is just the beginning. And what we need, going back to what I said before, is when the guys get there that they're pros, they know how to do things, and then people start saying, hey, go get a guy from Nebraska. Like, if you get a guy from Nebraska, they know how to practice. They're going to be X, Y, and Z. And then, 4 guys drafted or 6 drafted becomes 8, becomes 10, becomes 12, and then, they know that when they get someone that they hang around. So, Phelan Sanford heading up to Saskatchewan right now, right? He was through the Raiders through 8 games. And now he's going up to Canada to play. We just need our guys going to the next level, building a reputation for what it means to be a Husker, what it means to be a Husker at that level. And that will beget more people coming here. And if I forgot anybody's names for the seniors, I apologize. But guys should take a chance on our guy. Guys should take a chance on Bushini. He punted in this wind, in this environment here. They should absolutely give him an opportunity and see what our guys do.
How many quarterbacks might we see on Saturday? Is it just
probably 4? Yeah, Dylan and Jalen will do like the skills challenge stuff. They'll compete in the skills challenge stuff, and then Latif and the other guys, Davila, Bodie, and Longville, they'll play the game.
In the vein of guys getting to the pros, you'd mentioned Cam and his extension. Just how proud are you of him, and what could having a player like that visible in the league do for this program?
Well, so the thing, I put up all those different steps for Cam, and I made the point of, he's back here training, right? So he's here for his rehab. But I thought one of the coolest things for Cam Jurgens was, I brought up before how he changed positions when he got here, the trust, he developed, he grew. But what I like is that he played. There was a quote after they played one of their playoff games. He was playing. Obviously, he was hurt, and then Jason Kelsey, who was Hall of Fame center, who he replaced, called him a warrior. Said, "Hey, he's playing hurt. He's a warrior." And so, to me, I think the message always is, "Hey, your character comes first." We all want the prizes of life, but they usually come at the end. So you go through this whole process that Cam Jurgens has gone through of development, but it's also the character that he has had and shown that. When needed, he played hurt, he played banged up, sacrificed his body, had to have surgery, and then he ends up getting he got a bag, So, but it's also the respect that comes with that. To me, when you get an extension like that, it means people truly respect you, and so I think that's just good. That's good professionalism to have around here. I walked out to practice, and Nash, Giff, and Tyre. They're out to practice and they're going in to work out. So my goal is we'll have a ton of NFL players come out of here the next 6, 7, 8 years, and I want them in the building as much as possible.
What would you say is something that Dylan is doing better now in spring camp than he was fall camp heading into last
Everything.
season?
I mean, Dylan's he's 10 steps ahead of where he was, and where he was pretty cool. Even like a day-to-day when there's no pads and you're doing all these 2 minutes, the defensive line can knock down the line. There's no pads, so the pockets and his movement in the pocket, I think, is excellent. His ability to play the next play and move on, his checks, his knowing what he's seeing coverage-wise. Like I said, we're playing a lot different coverages, and maybe we've added some more coverages, and so I think he's able to get through all the coverages. And I've really enjoyed watching him coach the other quarterbacks while they're out there, right? So, you know, Glenn's over there with the other quarterbacks, kind of getting them to play, going through the reads and all that. And then whether it's Jalen or TJ, they're behind, and he's, you know, Dylan's back there, and he's reminding him of things. Or, you know, we had a weird situation, 2-minute situation today, and he got in the huddle for the first group, and then he got in the huddle for the second group. He's like, hey, 12 seconds, we have 3 timeouts. You know, catch the ball. So I think just the situational awareness. I think he's doing all of those things at a really high level.
Matt, you've talked about how much you've emphasized the 2-minute this spring. Why has that been such a point of emphasis, and how have you seen your group develop there?
Yeah, I think we've done it. I think we've done it. I think we've always tried to do it. I just think with, you know, where we're at right now, you go back to last year, it's kind of a unique thing. Like Dana does all these studies, and like our explosive play percentage was pretty on par with a lot of other good teams. It was more, which means like our routine plays aren't always great. So we talked a lot about, hey, just making routine plays, and that was touchdowns in the red zone, right? CFP teams, like, you know, the ones out of our conference were all like 70 plus touchdowns in the red zone, where we were like 50 some. So we've emphasized that a lot, and then obviously we've had the ball a lot with a chance to go win the game, right? And so continuing to develop that, but you know, I think it's good for our defense. It challenges communication. The only thing you can never ever replicate is just the pressure of those moments, right? Like, we're out there today, and if you don't score, or if you do score on defense, they do score on defense, it's kind of aw shucks. You walk off the field. You know, when you're in those moments, you know, in the game, your heart rate's going really fast, but in terms of the mechanics, the mechanism, and all that, I think we're repping it a ton so that all the players can grow and develop. And just to give you an idea, like I said something the other day, I think Sam asked me about it. I said, like, this is the kind of team I've been waiting to coach. Like, we threw an interception, unfortunately, for the offense, great for the defense. And there was one early, and a kid ran it back, and it was the end of the game. You should just get down, right? And then later on, we did the same thing, and another guy ran it a little bit, and then all the defensive guys kind of ran out, like screaming, like Sierra, and then we're like screaming for him to get down, get down, get down. And I started kind of walking over there, and I'm just minding my own. Everyone assumes the worst with me all the time, right? And Dylan was like, let it, they got it, coach, they got it. And I was like, I'm with you, I got it. You know, I won't say anything. But I guess my point is like they're coaching each other, and they're coaching each other on the details. And so that only comes with reps, only comes with time, and it comes with a great staff, right? You're getting situational awareness every single day in Mike Eckler's meetings. I mean, he's teaching situations as it relates to special teams. Butler and Dan are doing the same thing, and I know our position coaches are. So, you know, you have to just follow through by continuing to rep the drills.
How much is Saturday a recruiting event in comparison to the previous 2 end of spring scrimmages that you've had?
Probably less. Probably less. You know, because last year we did an official visit around this weekend. I think we've amplified some really cool things. I think this June we've been able to, you know, I think the 7-on-7 camp that we're doing is going to be just a game changer for us. You know, the more people we get on campus, the more people that go back and spread the good word about, hey, this place is just different. So, you know, it's been about getting people on campus. We've had a ton of people come through already, so that's been great. But I think this weekend would be, I mean, there's some really key players, don't get me wrong, but it's just not the amount, you know, that we have had in weeks past. And then obviously, you know, I mean, you're watching spring games all across the country, you know, the stadiums aren't all full. It's just a different environment. But it'll still be a really cool environment. It'll be good football. They'll get a chance to see our players interact, and if they want to, they stick around. They go watch soccer game, watch the volleyball game, which I know will be amazing. And, you know, I'll say one more time again, I'm really excited to watch the women's flag game before our game. You know, I think the fact that it's UNL students, and it's Midland, right? Midland. You know, so it's a lot of young ladies from Nebraska, women from Nebraska that are playing a sport that's going to be in the Olympics here. I think it's pretty cool.
Anything else?
All right, guys.